Welcome to the Mastering Business Skills podcast, where we interview successful small business owners who share their own journey, mastering the skills they needed to grow and be successful in their business. Learn the struggles, the wins, and all the things they learned along the way, so you can cut down on your own learning curve.
Welcome to the show. Today we're interviewing Mitch Beinhaker. And Mitch is a corporate attorney and business advisor who runs a solo legal/consulting practice, Beinhaker Law, LLC, representing business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, and professionals. Mitch spends his practice development efforts networking, attending professional groups, and public speaking. He's also the creator and the host of a podcast, The Accidental Entrepreneur, where he interviews successful business people and professionals who share their knowledge and help you develop your business. Welcome to the show, Mitch.
Thanks, Sharon.
So tell us a little bit about what inspired you to become a lawyer.
Well, I wish I could tell you that, I've always wanted to be a lawyer, and I used to watch Supreme Court, rulings and go to court, but it wasn't really like that. So in college, I was a business, finance, economics major, I guess, and have several lawyers in the family. And I think it was my grandmother who always poked me to go to law school. She was like, whatever you do, go to law school. So when I was coming out of undergrad, and it was getting to the point where, what do I do the next stage of my life? I didn't want to go get my MBA. I just felt didn't want to be in the analyst track, I was always a small business owner. I was always an entrepreneur, always having little businesses during the summer. I never had summer jobs. All my friends had jobs. I would be detailing cars or, stringing tennis rackets or delivering something or mowing lawns, whatever it was. So I was sitting around with a good friend of mine who is not a lawyer, and we were sitting around and he's like, I think I'm going to go to law school. And I'm like, hey, all right, I'll go to law school too. And about 2 weeks later, he's like, I'm not going to go to law school. So then I kind of evaluated, is it really something I want to do? Do I think it would be helpful in business or whatever I do with my life? So I decided that I would. And I, started looking for schools that would give me money, because basically my dad was like, listen, I got your sister in college, so good luck with that. And I ended up at New York Law School in the city and got some loans and got some money and, started off on the road to becoming an attorney. Little did I know, though, I would be basically in private practice instead of working for a big firm or something. That's kind of the way you envision it, So that's kind of what happened. If that answers the question, it wasn't an epiphany I had one day. It was kind of a default. I'm very happy with what I do. I'm very good at it now. But it was really kind of a defaulted decision.
Right.
The accidental attorney, I guess, Yeah.
I feel like that falls in line with the accidental entrepreneur.
Right, of course.
With this, the solo business or the solo practice, it goes hand in hand, right?
Yeah, I had to learn all that stuff. Most attorneys, they don't teach you in law school how to run your practice. There was a book everyone was passing around when we were graduating called, How to Start Your Own Law Firm. And people be like, well, what do I need that book for? I'm going to go get a job. And of course, a lot of them didn't get jobs and they had to start firms and get started. But yeah, you have to learn how to do your trust accounting and your business accounting. And then you have to learn how to market and network. And there's before all the online stuff. And how do you stay in touch with people? And you have ethical requirements. And well, in those days, we didn't have CLE, but we had the first 3 years it was ridiculous. In New Jersey, you could only learn things for 3 years. The rest of it, you were on your own. And then the bar got smart because nobody was going to these meetings anymore. And they decided to extend it. Now you have to, go and get credits every 2 years or something. So that you have to do. You have to keep up with all that stuff. You have to have insurance, right? You have to. And when you're working for a firm, you don't really think about those things. It's just taken care of for you. So I had to learn all that kind of stuff very early on while I was still growing a practice and talking to people and helping them. And how do I bill? What's my retainer letter look like? And you would pick things up along the way as you went. Now I'm 33 years later. I know what I'm doing, but probably for the first 10 years I was winging it, and the next 10 years I was getting better at it. I'm talking about running the practice. And then, now I have a lot of things that are automated and, take care of themselves or are very easy to do and so forth. But I have colleagues that are my age and they're going out on their own, leaving their big firms. And they're like, well, can you talk to me help me with I guess I'm like a lawyer's coach now for free, of course. Can you help me with this? And, what should I do? How do I get business? How do I market?
Right.
So I share those kind of things. I probably should start a consulting practice, but that's another thing I can add to the list. Things I gotta do.
Right.
Yeah.
How long did it take you before you brought on like outside contractors or support to help you with all of the things that you're trying to do?
So I've had different kind of, we kind of reinvent ourselves every 5 or 10 years, right? So I've had different partnerships and different people. There was a time up until about 2019 that we had what, 4 other partners, I think, or 5 other partners, and of counsel attorneys, we had like 8 of counsel and staff and so forth. And then I had an assistant that helped me with running the firm. Late 2019, not knowing what was happening in March of 2020, I went out on my own, and for a lot of reasons, but mostly that, revenue is going up and my personal income is going down, which is usually a bad mix. That's a good advice for people. If that's happening, you should definitely change what you're doing. So I did. And then I was working pretty much on my own. I mean, I was just a solo at that point. I'm not a litigator, so I don't have to have somebody manage my calendar and call the court and adjust this and call clients. Everything's pretty much for the most part within my control. Maybe some closings, we got to schedule stuff. But nowadays with automated calendars and everything, it's easy. So about maybe a year or 2 ago, I was doing the podcast show, right? You can see that when you mentioned it before. And so we're coming up on 7 years in February. So yeah, there's probably about 2 years ago, it was getting to be a lot, right? It was stressful. I was recording these episodes and I would do the editing, and I didn't do any video editing. It was all audio and recording commercials and inserting them and whatever. I had even gotten it down where I could do it in 40 minutes. I could have an episode ready to go, set to be launched, right? But one of my goals was to take that off my plate. So I did bring on a virtual assistant through a client of mine who's got a service that works out of, I think they do it in the Philippines, but that's where she is. So, but it changed my whole practice. I mean, she doesn't do just the podcasting. She posts my blog articles, and she deals with all the social media posting that comes out of the show. Now we create blog articles from transcripts, right? Because she wasn't going to write them. And now we have AI that can do that kind of stuff and send them to the guests. And so she's taken all that. And then also I have a very kind of a niche area of practice where I do arbitrations for medical practices, kind of a no surprises act type of thing. And it's a few doctors I do that for. So I have a paralegal who's outside who does that with me. But besides that, I don't have a secretary. Somebody doesn't answer my phones. I return my own calls. I deal with it, pretty much on my own. Do I want to do that forever? No. But for right now,
Right.
it's just not. It's getting to the point where I'm very, very, very busy. So I'm going to have to bring on like a young associate or something like that. So I've been kind of circling the wagons on that issue because, you get very busy and then you're like, well, I'm going to stay busy, But all the marketing that I've been doing now that's been automated has been resulting in constant business. So I'm almost at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You get to that point where in order to grow, you have to bring on some additional help. And
I mean, and I think you need to just bite the bullet on that one. I mean, I think you can't, what's the expression? You can't wait till all the lights are green to head to town, right? This is not going to work. So you right. So you have to kind of be confident about what you're doing and then say, okay, I'm going to now take the things off my plate that I shouldn't be doing. Right. I should be maybe developing business and practicing law. And then all the other stuff will keep going,
right.
If you set it up right. And then you will get back a lot more than you're putting in. You just got to take the risk and do it and be committed to it. That's my feeling about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I think that Sharon and I got where we balance each other out so much, but then we did also bring in a VA as well, which was game changing because like my own schedule, I'll show either one, either Talitha or VA or Sharon my schedule, and everybody's like, what is that? But it is crazy. But once I brought on TT or Talitha, it was like a game changer because I could then take some time each day to move stuff over to her.
Right.
And it freed me up to do the things that I needed to do. So I'm sure, and it took me years to be able to do that. I mean, I've been in business 20 years, and I was like, it was just recently where I was like, oh, I should delegate some of this and not try and do it all myself.
Well, I think it's the entrepreneur's myth, right? That first of all, in order to be successful, you got to do everything yourself, and it's totally the opposite. Actually, you shouldn't be doing everything yourself. You should. I don't know if I agree with, what's his name, Keller Williams. The one thing. I don't know if there's one thing that you should be doing. It's probably several things, but I think that a lot of us try to do everything on our own, and we think that that's going to give us the best result, and they don't realize the results that they can get when you're freed up to be, I don't know if you two cling the top of the totem pole together, or depending on the day, one's a little bit below the other one, but you certainly shouldn't be doing stuff on the bottom of the telephone pole, And you have to when we get started. You're right. You fight your way through. You do. But I mean, if you really want to get successful, and I'm not just saying this for the practice of law, I'm saying this for any small business owner. If you really want to be successful, you have to, that should be part of your planning, right? How do I bring in the right people to handle the jobs that will free me up to do the 2 or 3 or 4 things that I need to do to make this business successful, right? Developing business, you're not doing the marketing myself, but overseeing the marketing, doing the work that I have to do as opposed to other people, right? I don't have to do all the legal work, but some of it I can't delegate, unless I have a young associate, but I couldn't delegate it to a secretary, So, but I think that's a real misnomer in business. Like, I think people, and I told you, I've worked with probably thousands of clients. I'm mostly a business attorney, and I've interviewed, I don't know, we're up to 400 interviews, something like that for the show. It's a constant theme. The ones that are successful are the ones that gear their businesses up very quickly, right? To bring in the right people. I just had a woman on my show. I don't think the episode's even out yet, but she's a realtor in Florida, right? And I don't usually have real estate people on the show because I consider them more investors than they are entrepreneurs, but I've had a few. Well, she has built she got a real estate license, started selling real estate, and then she decided, well, why don't I build an agency and bring other people in? She did that. And then why don't I open a title company, which you can do in Florida and have multiple licenses? She did that. And why don't we start a mortgage company? And she did that. And what she would do is she would, each step of the way, learn what she needed to learn about doing it, and then find the person who could take over and run that division of her company. Now she's got like 6 divisions. She's, worth a ton of money, and she puts a lot of money to self-development and a lot of money to marketing and all that kind of stuff. And she did it intentionally, as opposed to you just accidentally getting to the point where you hire somebody. So I think if you do that as part of your planning, you're going to increase your chances of success by tenfold if you do that. A lot of people don't. They wing it. It's just so sad.
Yeah. Or bringing in. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I know that a lot of clients or potential clients, when I first talk to them, one of the things that they always tell me is that they're overwhelmed, they're stressed, they're trying to do it all.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, wait, stop. What is your passion? What do you like to do? What is your business that makes you money?
What are you best at? Right.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, what are the things that you don't like to do, don't know how to do, hate to do, whatever.
Right.
And those are the first things you need to find somebody and get that off your plate.
Right. Well, I think people don't delineate the difference between an employee and a business owner. And I think that they're stuck, right, in that trap of doing everything themselves, and they don't realize how it's reducing the quality of their life, not increasing the value of their business, even if they're not going to sell it someday. But, we do this for quality of life ultimately, right?
Right.
And like you said, they're just doing so much. They're juggling everything. You can never get a good result. You just can't. I don't care how good you are at, let's use the word multitasking with quotes around it, because you're not really multitasking, right? You stop this, you start that, you go to this, right? There's not really multitasking,
right?
But you're just overwhelming yourself, and you're just running yourself ragged. The end of the day, you get home, you're probably not pretty good for your spouse or your significant other or whatever. And, and then it catches up with you is what happens, right? Health-wise and, quality of life.
Oh, yeah.
I hate this. Why am I doing this? And then when it could have been the right way from the beginning, I'm not saying you don't struggle. Like, let's say 2 to 3 years, the world's on fire and you're running around and you're working long hours and you're doing this stuff. But that should be about it. And that's why the failure rate's very high, 2 to 5 years, right? Because you can only kill yourself for so long, right? You can only be the programmer who stays up all night programming Facebook forever. You can't do that. It's just not sustainable. So I think people really don't. The ones that I've had on that are very successful, they get that from the beginning and they've done it with multiple businesses. The ones that struggle are the ones that don't get it and do exactly what you said, Sharon.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or even taking time away from what you're good at to do something that you maybe are mediocre at, or you're okay at,
Yeah.
or you don't know how to do, and now you're going down all of the YouTube
Right, it's a
rabbit holes of
double-edged
how to
problem.
do it. And
Right. So you're doing something you
yeah.
shouldn't be doing, plus you're taking your time away from things that you should be doing. You'd cause
Right.
double damage to the company.
Yeah. I had a client once who she had never worked with anybody outside of, like, she had done everything herself for the longest time. And she said, I'm struggling with this copy. Can you do this for me? And we had this project. So I took it. It wasn't a huge project, and did the copy, sent it back, and she sent me an email that said, "Oh my God, this is amazing. I spent 10 hours trying to do this and got 3 sentences written, and you just got it back to me in, a few hours, and now I can move forward."
Yeah.
And it's that knowing that you can give it to somebody who's an expert. Yes, you're going to pay for their expertise, but you're still saving money in the long run because you can then have your own time back.
Right.
For what
And
you're
they'll probably do it better
actually
than you. I hate to say that, but
Yeah.
the marketing person does it better than I do. The paralegal is much more on top of those things than I am.
Yeah.
It's just because that's what they're good at and that's what they're focused on. They're not dealing with all the baggage that you're dealing with every day. So it's, yeah, I think there's definitely a path to success for business owners, and that they don't have to be the accidental entrepreneur. They can be purposeful about things, but which is kind of the goal of the whole project that started, with a show, and I didn't know what the heck I was going to talk about. But they just, I don't know, they continue. I find that one of the goals, not only to, like handing things off, but to kind of focus on how do I invest in myself. Like the most successful ones I know also spend a ton of, I'm not saying you have to spend a ton of money, but do a lot of things for self-enrichment, right? They go to mastermind groups, and some of them are very expensive, and they can't stop reading stuff and listening to motivational things and business stuff and, learning about how to, because it's out there. Nobody's hiding it. It's just learning about becoming a student of what it is you want to do. And then, like you said, Aaron, you would figure this stuff out. You would see, when it's pretty easy for me to talk about this because I've seen it hundreds and hundreds of times. It's the same theme, right? The thread that runs through the successful businesses tend to be about the same, and the ones that struggle for the same reasons.
Right.
With some exceptions, nuances is probably a better word, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now, shifting gears a little bit, tell us a little bit about the podcast. What got you started with that, and what was your, kind of?
Sure. So I'm as a business attorney, I do estates and trusts, real estate. It's all transactional. I do a lot of writing for work. So I wasn't going to write articles, which I do now, ironically, but I wasn't going to write articles and that would be my content, right? I like to talk and whatever. So I listen to a ton of podcasts. My wife makes fun of me that I don't listen to the radio. I'm always listening to shows on Spotify, whatever. Boring stuff that she thinks is boring. But I like listening to business stuff, history, economics, whatever. Yeah. And there was must have been a Pat Flynn video or something. They were like, you can start a podcast for $75. I'm like, well, don't you need an engineer and a sound studio and all this kind of stuff? And people... So I went and I bought, this is when I had some partners. I spent the $75. I took the list off the video. We bought it. You can listen to the early episodes. The sound is atrocious, just terrible. That was after I learned how to clean it up with some filters, but it was just terrible. So we were doing stuff about law and stuff like that. I forget exactly what. It was what do you do if you go to municipal court? So a buddy of mine said, I heard your podcast. And I go, yeah, what do you think? He goes, it's terrible. I'm like, really? Do we sound bad? No, it's just very boring. Nobody wants to hear about law and whatever. To this day, I don't remember the friend that told me that. So I had a good friend of mine, a guy named Jack Killian, who was a mentor of mine. He passed away in 23, maybe 22. And he was a guy who I'd met who was always helping me along the way, giving me advice and whatever. So I said, Jack, I want you to come to my office. We're going to record a podcast. It was all audio, right, in those days. And we're going to make some content and share some stuff. So he's like, well, what are we going to talk about? I was like, I have no idea. And I think he even said, "What's a podcast?" Right? And he's the guy who introduced me to Zoom, and he didn't even. So comes to the show, comes to the office. We were sitting in a room, right? There was no video, so we had like, you can see this mic right here. So I had like a mic on the end of each desk. He's sitting over there. I'm sitting here. We're tapped into a little laptop with some, little power devices, whatever. And for what turned out to be 3 hours, he tells me his story, and it was, and you got to listen to it. It's like the first 2 episodes. I had to break it up into 2 episodes.
Right.
Unbelievable story, like stories of starting magazines and making deals and meeting like famous people. And he went to the Sloan School at MIT, worked for McKinsey for a while, did a lot, and he knows business and investments and so forth. Ironically, I never knew this of him, but he went to my high school like 40 years before I did, met his wife, who I'm still friends with, in my high school. So they both went to my high school. And we did this whole thing. So I had this whole story, and I'm like, well, that's what we're going to do. Like, we're going to bring business owners on. It's a good prospecting tool for me. It's good content for them. And we're going to just let them tell their stories. I don't have to be prepared. I get their bio ahead of time. We just let it go as it go. And then the name, have you ever heard of The Accidental Tourist, the movie? Yep. Accidental Tourist, Liam Neeson, was it? Or no, William Hurt.
Yeah, William Hurt.
Right. There was like, I was like thinking of the names of the show, and there's like a billboard on Netflix or something that said The Accidental Tourist. I'm like, the accidental entrepreneur. Like, that's what's the problem. All these people are just accidentally going into business. They're frustrated at work. They all think that they can do it. They could if they follow the right principles, right? So that's where the name of the show came from. And we just started like recording episodes, and I figured out that was, you talk about doing it yourself, Aaron. I had to figure out, like, how do you get this stuff up on the directories, and how do you what's the best way to record it? And then I've even given talks about like how to start a podcast and the equipment that I use and stuff like that. So now I have a mixing board here and whatever. I use Riverside FM, which is a, like kind of like StreamYard. Mm-hmm. So the recording's better and all that. But that was, 3 years in, 4 years in, maybe even 5 years in of doing this stuff as I learned. So it was really an experiment of how can we produce good content to market, in those days, my law firm, but now my services, and to hopefully push the envelope a little bit and change the curve of failure for small business owners. Because I didn't think it doesn't have to be like that. It hasn't changed, but it doesn't have to be like that. So that's kind of where the show came from. And then, since like when I got introduced to Zoom, really because of you and Jen, Aaron, and my friend Jack, and he's like, and I didn't know what the heck it was. I realized that now not only could I connect with people all over the world, and I like literally have interviewed people on every continent except Antarctica. I don't think I got anybody down there. But I'm trying to connect with a guy in Australia now. But the time difference is like, can you record here? Yeah. I'm like, no, it's the middle of the night. Can we record it? Oh, no, it's my middle of the night. So we're working on that. But for the most part, I've connected with people all over the world. And then one day I was like, wait, what am I doing with all this video? Like, it's just getting recorded and being sitting. So I sent out an email to people, you mind us using the video? And then we started posting the video and set up a YouTube channel. The funny thing was I got emails from people, old guests, and they're like, yeah, you could post my video. I'm like, well, on what planet do you think that we were recording video? You were sitting at the end of the table with me in my office. Who was recording this video? Oh, yeah, you're right. So so my friend Jack, whatever, we don't have video from them. I think the 100th episode I did with him was on video, it was on Zoom. And then, and now with the VA and everything, though, we've gone more to a video platform. We have commercials in there, and then we just take the track and put it on audio. We've like reversed the whole thing. Right? TikTok, Reels, whatever. So it's been an evolution. Is that a long answer to your very short question?
No, it probably made complete sense to Sharon because that is all her area. I was just nodding along because that is not my area.
That's the evolution of it. That's how it happens.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's why I am excited that we have more people than.
Yeah, I mean, if you keep exploring, right? If you keep doing stuff, eventually it becomes, something. So even the background, I met a guy who said, hey, I can do a background for you on whatever tool he used. I don't know. And I sent him all my logos, and he said, this is a virtual conference room. So I have 2 of these, and
nice.
Set it up. So now we have this kind of stuff.
I know.
My camera will even, I don't have it set up today, but if I move, the camera will follow me. It's got one of those sensors in it.
Yeah.
I don't have it turned on today. Yeah. I like
Yeah,
widgets, whatever.
one of my cameras does that. I hate using it with a podcast though, because I do.
Right. If you move and then the camera's going like, I mean, if it's good for a lecture if you're standing up at a board and you're moving and
Right.
then will follow you. But yeah,
Yeah, I don't use mine. I don't use that one for that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
That's another thing. If you want to start a podcast, you get a lot of fun, like tools and stuff, a lot of fun gear, I guess.
Yeah.
Is a good word, right?
Actually, Sharon's son, I think, was the one that said that when I got my ring light, it was the best investment I ever made.
Yeah. No, I have, there's a light up here, an umbrella light here. But in those days, I don't have any lights. I don't know. I was open the windows.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I looked like I was just in a shadow somewhere in the very first episodes before the ring light came. Then I had the epiphany that
even the camera, we used to have it up on the monitor. So if I'm looking, that's what I would look like, right? If I'm looking at the camera. So it looks terrible. So I thought of the idea to take we had a mic stand for the mics, which I wasn't using anymore because I was using these things. I was like, well, maybe the camera can fit on the mic stand. Sure, it could just screw on the bottom, and then now it's in the middle, and I can move it around to see you guys and look at the camera, and I don't look away too far. So, but you learn those tricks after a while when you meet people who know about camera being on camera.
You do.
Yeah. We always have people give us feedback, and then they'll follow it with like, I hope I didn't offend you, and I'm like, no, we actually enjoy the feedback because that makes it better. I feel like no matter whether it's business, whether it's the podcast, the feedback always helps you improve. So
that's how you learn. Yeah, that's how you learn.
Like I can tell your ring light, Aaron, if you tilt your head back. Yes, I can see your ring light. So you have your ring set up so it doesn't ring. But I've had people on the show where you could see the rings in their glasses or you can see their computer screen literally go. So, my lights are up top too for the same reason because, if you go like this, you'll see the lights?
Yeah.
My glass? Yeah. But nobody wants to see that. So, gotta learn. But,
I don't wear my glasses in.
Exactly. These are like got that computer filter on it or whatever, so I can glare. But you think about, I mean, look, I'm unshaven today. I usually don't shave till Thursday night because I want to be clean shaven for the show because it's on video for the rest of my life. So I apologize. I'm a little scruffy today, but I do like Mondays and Thursday nights. So I'm, whoops, I just lost the screen. Hold on a second.
Oh.
Yeah, I got to put in the pin. I have no idea why that happens. Okay. I think because I didn't move my mouse enough and then it put my screen to sleep. So what other things would you like to know? I mean, I've interviewed so many people in so many industries, so many different countries. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
I'm going to let Sharon ask some.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is maybe the best piece of advice or the best story from your guests that you got?
Oof, that's tough.
Just curious. I know that's a hard one.
I got a lot of them. I mean, I've had stories of people that, crazy stories of people that are walking to work one day and woke up in the hospital 3 weeks later because they got knocked unconscious and they still got back on the horse and ran their business and won all kinds of awards. There was a guy who was on who had I think he still does. It's like a moving. It's not a moving company, but it kind of connects companies that need trucking with truckers. Apparently, that's a thing because you can't. You might have your own truck and you got to find jobs and things like that. He had some sort of a business he was running in Brooklyn. Got jumped, mugged, knocked out, and then recovered, and then started this new business. And he had 2 other businesses before that, and I think he broke a record for one of the platforms, the money raising platforms, funding platforms, for his age and the amount of money he raised or something for this company.
Wow.
I've had people on the show who have, started companies, got ripped off, didn't, from either their partners or people that were trying to take them public or whatever, and then, found their way back. I haven't had anybody who's on the show who had failed and is still failing. They're all coming kind of back to what they're doing. I've had people on the show with, a lot of it's hardship, like things that they face in their life, living in their car. There was a guy on the show who was in or is in the cheese business in Wisconsin, and he's like a Mexican refugee or a Latin American refugee. How he's in Wisconsin making cheese, you'd never know. But he basically came to this country with no money, found his way to work for a company, and built his way up to the point where he bought this guy out, and now he's worth millions of dollars and helps other people. And yeah, a lot of the people that are successful are now, giving back, and a lot of them are now consulting and helping other businesses. It's like it's like an evolution. People go, Aaron, I see how successful you are. Could you teach me how to be successful? And that's kind of how, most of these consulting things come on. I don't bring a lot of consultants on the practice, on the show, unless they have a business story to tell. Because it's not that I don't think of them as business owners, but they're not really entrepreneurs, not in the case of, you're just a solo, right? So you're just kind of doing the things we're telling them not to do, which is don't do everything yourself, right?
Right.
So, yeah. And I've also learned to pre-interview people, because I've had some shows where I got on and I'm like, how am I going to get through an hour with this person? Like, this is just, they're giving me one-word answers. They got nothing to say.
Yeah.
And I learned early on. Now I do, I've had booking agencies say, oh, they don't really do preliminary things. Can you just have them on the show? I'm like, no. I don't care if they're Shaq or LeBron James or, the new Giants quarterback. I got to talk to them ahead of time, make sure I can make it a good show for them, and that we have and they're going to sound good on camera and whatever. And they have a camera and a mic and, whatever. They're ready to come on the show. And I have turned down people before, because I'm like, this is just going to be just a train wreck,
Yeah. Aaron and I, we've kind of, if we don't personally know the guest, then we don't do an interview, a podcast with them until we do the pre.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I'm out of guests that I know. I meet some guests, but for the most part, once you've done 80, 100 or more episodes, the booking agencies find you. So I get requests, and also Podmatch is a very good website. I get requests for people to be on the show. I would say 2 or 3 a day now. So many, I can't even keep up with them. So I'll look at their bio, I'll ask some questions. If that's okay, I'll send them a link, send up a 15-minute chat, meet, and then I'll give them an email with a link to book the show, and they got to give me their bio. It's a Google form, but bio, headshot, logo, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, then we can make a good show, and I can upload everything from my VA, and it's all become. But a lot of that was trial and error. It was definitely trial, error, failure. Yeah. Embarrassment, whatever. I've had people come on the show and they're like basically not wearing, it's not that they're naked, but they're like wearing their sweats or whatever. They're like, oh, is this video? I'm like, yeah, it's video if you read the email. So we reschedule. I had somebody do something from an airport, and I said, listen, Riverside FM, one of the problems one of the advantages of Riverside FM is that the system records on your computer, your piece, and my computer, my piece, and then puts the two together. So we have no problem with connectivity or, blurry video or anything like that. But if you're on a phone, is that going to record? So I said to this person, listen, I'll do this, but I don't think it's going to work. And sure enough, it just crapped out about halfway through the show. Wow. And I never re-recorded because I was just, I don't know, it's aggravated. It's like they could have rescheduled if you're going to do it in an airport,
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I feel too. Like even some of the calls that I've been on, even not even podcast related, but they schedule a call with you, and then they're like driving, or they're in an airport, or they're or whatever it is, or at a party, and you're like, why are you talking to me? Yeah. Like, let's just reschedule the call. No, I'm fine. But then they're not fine because they're distracted and they're all over.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're trying to make good content. Look, we're not signing deals with Spotify. We're doing it to make content for them and for us. So they got to take the time to do it. And I learned that early on from, what's his name? Jordan. He's a big podcaster. Anyway, I'll think of his name while we're talking. But he was like, listen, even when I started out in the business and nobody knew me, I follow the same rule no matter who it is, because you don't want them, like you said, walking through an airport. They got to have a decent mic or at least earbuds. And be presentable on stage, on screen, or else you're not going to get good content, and it doesn't make for a good show. So I reschedule all the time, and I get people that don't show. They're, oh, I'm so sorry, I was busy. Can we reschedule? I'm like, yeah, one time, but I'm an attorney and I charge for my time. So if I'm giving you 15 minutes to talk to me, and you don't show up for half an hour, I lose that time, because I'm not focused on something else because I'm waiting for you to come online.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That has always been a pet peeve of mine when people will schedule a time with you, but then they just don't show. And then after they're like, oh, sorry, I got busy or this came up. But and I understand that sometimes, maybe it didn't go on your calendar or whatever, but those ones where they're like, oh, it was just in a project and,
Right.
time got away from me. And I'm like, but it didn't have to. I literally set an alarm on my phone for every single thing for 15 minutes before every single call I have, anything I have to be at.
Of course.
Because that way I know that I'm not gonna, then I have that 15 minutes before, and you get ready and you do all the things, you make sure you can get online. And if I weren't to do that, I'd probably miss 9 times out of 10 what I was supposed to be doing.
Right. No, I feel the same way. I'm maybe not as forgiving as you are. You're right. If it's an emergency, I've had that happen. I've had people, have problems with their calendar, which a little weird, but because they're using a booking link for me and it sends them reminders like 6 times.
Right.
So, and I've had people forget, and if they forget and they screw up, I said, yeah, we can reschedule, but only once.
Yeah.
Because after that, then I'm losing money and time, and I make it important. I put my time aside. I don't book something else in that slot that I could book.
Yeah.
So, I also hate cancellations. Like somebody changes the podcast show 10 minutes before the show.
Oh,
Those I'll usually cancel and say, listen, I don't allow you to reschedule. First, I'll find out what the reason is. But if they're not smart enough to make up a serious reason and they're just like, oh, I just ran into, I just have to do some other things. I'm like, well, then don't get on my calendar.
Yeah.
I got plenty of guests. I don't need any more,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. We luckily haven't run into too much of that.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
And usually if they don't show up, it's because something happened or they screwed up the calendar and they want to reschedule. I had a guy reschedule for next week for this afternoon, actually. He had rescheduled because he had a problem, but then I ran into a conflict. I said, listen, I have to do a closing this afternoon, so I can't be on the call. Can we reschedule again? So I also learned I send for prelim calls for like booking agencies and stuff. I always make it a one-time link. It's not reusable because I was finding that bookers were just like throwing people on my calendar.
Yeah.
Like, who the heck is this person?
Yeah.
And they're not, like I don't take financial advisors or other attorneys on the show. And I'll be on the call. I'll be like, yeah, well, I've been a financial advisor. I'm like, a financial advisor? How'd you even get on my calendar? So then I changed that because people are just, throwing people on the show. So I don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I have a question.
Sure.
So is there maybe a business skills? Because we talk about, mastering business skills.
Yeah.
And with our clients and everything. Is there a skill that maybe you wished that you had mastered sooner? And what was it? And
For a business skill?
yeah, for a business skill.
Definitely the personnel side of it, like, how to be good at choosing people to work with and run your organization. I think that from an emotional standpoint, we're very like trusting and, I meet Erin and she's like, oh no, I met her. She was great. And we don't do any kind of objective evaluations. I now know services and tools and people that help you do that. I'm not looking for anybody right now, but if I was, I think I would be a little bit better at it. But that's one of the reasons why I think I walked away from my old firm was because I met a bunch of attorneys who were very nice people and I think smart lawyers, but they weren't really motivated, maybe not good at or not motivated to market and, develop business. And I was finding myself, along with maybe one other attorney, doing all the business development. How many mouths can I feed? How many mouths do I want to feed? So, so I think that that is definitely a skill that I wish I had learned earlier. I think I've always been pretty good at business development. When I started out in the insurance and financial planning field and I was like a support attorney, I didn't know prospecting from networking. Like I didn't know what networking was. Prospecting was you meet a client and the client refers you to a new one, and that's the way you build business. You can't really do that as a lawyer. I mean, you could, but they could also call the bar association and file an ethics claim, right? So you can't really do that. So I was talking to a friend of mine, but this is years ago, and he said, why don't you come to our networking event? I'm like, okay, I'm not an IT person. Like, why would I go to a networking event? He's like, no, not networking like of computers, like networking of people, building relationships. I'm like, people do that? So I went to, so I went to this event. It was run by this guy, Ted Foderos. I don't know, Aaron, if you ever met Ted, but he
I don't
passed
think
away
so.
like in his 50s from something. And he had these chapters of whatever organization it was called. I think it was called Network Plus. I could be totally wrong about that, and my friend Bruno, who's in the title business, was running this chapter. So I met him. He's also the guy who taught me the real estate business, and he taught me all about networking. He said, it's about who you can feed and who can feed you and all this kind of stuff. And from then on, it kind of changed. It was a pivot from what I thought was how you develop business to how you really do it as a person. And building networks is probably one of the keys to people's success. You can't just keep looking for the next piece of business with people you don't know. It protects your job if you lose a job. It protects your company if people know about you. It protects your reputation in the community, whatever it is. It's a skill that I hope people develop. I'm trying to get my kids to understand and develop that very early on. Start, building networks, building connections, and because there's always something I can find for people. If somebody needs something, some kind of loss, some kind of help, I can't do it. Absolutely, I can find it for them. No question about it. I know somebody who can do it. But so I always look at like businesses as, you have from a business planning standpoint, you have your product or service. In my case, it's legal services, and somebody else's case might be a product. You have your people. We talked about that problem, right? Being able to pick good people and have the people and being willing to give up things. Then there's the marketing side of it. What's your marketplace? How do you market to it? How do you reach these people? Which, by the way, I think is the most important part. Like if you don't do anything else, and if you can't figure out how you're going to sell this thing and who's going to buy it, people do that. They build businesses, they buy products, they hire people, and they're like, okay, well, let's find some people to buy our stuff. I'm like, well, that's backwards. And then there's the financial side, I guess, the fourth. So those are like the four main components of a business plan. And if you get good at like all of them, or get somebody to help you with all of them, you'll be relatively successful. But the order, don't do it in the order that I mentioned them. Do it in the order of figuring out who's going to buy this thing, what you're going to sell it for, who's going to help you do it. And then you can, hone your product and service, and you can work on your financials, and it all kind of fits together. But people do it backwards. And they ignore their financials. People hate and don't know about them. They don't know how unsuccessful they are. Nobody wants to look at their cash flow and say, this is terrible. I shouldn't be doing this. Nope. They're committed emotionally. They're going to do it. We're going down in flames, baby. Right? I mean, that's what it is. It's like buying a home that you shouldn't be buying, and you're just in love with the house, and it's just, your attorney's like, I saw this inspection report. You should not be buying this house. And you're like in love with the house and the neighborhood or whatever, and you overlook things, and you're like, boy, I wish I did that different. Yeah.
I've seen that even with strategy. I'll create strategies with people in the beginning of the year, and this is what we want to accomplish in our business throughout the year, and we're going to break it down into quarters. And then as the quarters go on, things change, and
that's why you don't do it too far out.
And trying to get them to understand that just because you originally thought you might want to do this year, it does not mean that you have to be married to it forever.
Right.
Make sure that you do it.
Right.
Like if you decide, if you shifted gears and that thing doesn't fit anymore, it's okay to change your mind. And
that's what the brave people do.
Yeah.
Right? It's the people on the train track and the bridge is out, and you're like, well, we got to pull the lever here. We're going to go to the left. And you're like, but that we got to get over there. It's but you're going to fall off into the ravine and die. And they're just so committed, and they crash and burn. Yeah. And I think some of it is emotional, like embarrassment, like, this is supposed to be, but
this is what I said I'd do. So, it's my word. And
of course, even my kids in college, if your kid doesn't like what they're studying, then change it sooner than later, right? If you've committed 2 years of college, let's say you're halfway through college, you put in all this time with whatever you're doing. We're going to medical school. Now you're not going to go, you're going to go into business. You're like, but I wasted 2 years of my life. Well, good. Don't waste another 2 years of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's what the smart people do. The people that are just like, okay, whatever, I'm committed to this, I'm going to have to do it. Either get to where they're going and are miserable, or ultimately don't get there anyway. And then they wasted more time and more frustration, and they're, in therapy or whatever. I don't know, whatever it is. But we're just, it's just we get stuck to something that we're like, I don't want to tell people that I quit,
Yeah.
I didn't quit. Change gears, I think was the word you used, Aaron.
Yeah.
Pivot.
Because I mean, Sharon knows, like, there was a point in time where I was like, I believe it was 4 active businesses going at one time. And I was stretched so thin. It was insane. And so I started finally like looking at things. And even recently I had to do it again because I still have three.
Three.
But
That's
I had
hard to
to
be in
I
that
had
kind
to
of.
look at like different things, like what can I delegate in this one and who can I bring in to help in that one, and and what do I want to do versus what do I don't want to do, like at all, like what and one of them and it was funny because just recently I had one of my old my website domains I had on my site, like, oh, I'm going to change that site to whatever, and then I had it on my to-do list for freaking months, and I was like,
Because you shouldn't be doing it.
I just kept moving it and moving it and moving it. And then finally one day I was just like, I'm procrastinating because I don't really want to do it.
Right.
I don't want to go into that. Like, just because somebody said, oh, you should do this with this. And I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. But I didn't actually want to do it. So it took me a little bit to realize that, oh, it is okay to just let that go. Like, drop that off. You don't need, like, you can let the domain expire. You don't have to keep
Just let it go and you feel better about it. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, my granddaughter watches Elsa all the time. Frozen.
Yeah.
Let it go is like our song in the house.
Let it go. I know.
Yep.
You have to. You feel better, and you feel relieved after that. If you can't get somebody to do it for you, it's okay to keep it going if you find the right person. But I think that we tend to, I call these people portfolio entrepreneurs. Like they have 12 things going on and they think that they're an entrepreneur because they're, couch surfing and they're doing all this stuff. And the ones that I know that have multiple companies did it just like the woman, the real estate person I mentioned, right? They built that company, made it solid, got the person and the people in there running it, and then moved on to the next project. And made them all firm and solid, as opposed to starting four things at the same time and you just can't get a good result that way. It's too much. You're spread too thin.
No. Yeah, exactly. Especially when they're very different and you're trying to do everything.
It's even worse, right? It's not integrated.
All different directions.
Yeah.
Mitch, tell us what's next for you and for your business.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, I'm going to be 59 in December, and I'm in a practice that is, you too, huh? I'm in a practice that is, I don't have a business. Like nobody could really buy an attorney could buy my practice, but they're really just buying my services. There's nothing to sell. What my clients, I can't guarantee they're going to work with somebody. So I have been exploring what do I do next? Talking to colleagues, talking to people. Maybe I'll go back to a little bit bigger firm where we could build something up and bring in younger people, and then they can take over. And because I don't mind working in my 70s, but I don't want to be the one marketing and driving the business and hosting the podcast and writing the article, all that kind of stuff. So kind of at a crossroads. And I've been at that crossroad for, good 5 years, circling the wagons, thinking like, well, what's next? Like, how do you get to the next stage? So we'll see. I don't know. That's kind of to be determined, I guess.
I'm in the same boat, but I just turned 59 a couple of weeks ago, and it's like, right now, I still can't see myself not doing.
Right, of course. But I mean, at some point, if you get to 70, 75, are you going to be able to, or do you still want to be doing more than a couple of things, to support the business? I had a guy in my office. Well, there's a couple of attorneys here that are on their own. And this one guy, Matt, sweetheart of a guy, he was a litigator for years. He was 92, I think, 91, 92, has a bunch of kids still working, and had a nursemaid here, all kinds of an aide or whatever, and then went into the hospital. He had some complications or something. He was going to come out, and then he died. So he literally had cases still going on in court. They had to tell the judges, I don't go to court much anyway. I don't want to be that person. And, something happens to me, it just shuts down. So I got to work on this succession.
That reminds me, when I was in the car business when I was younger, I shared an office with one of the other managers because he was 90, I think he was 95 at the point. And he refused to. He was like, nobody, that was his thing. He was coming into work and, and whatever. So we would share an office and he would tell me stories. And then he would fall asleep in his chair in the corner of the office. And I would go about my day, and if I had somebody come in, I'd bring them to a different office because I didn't want to bring them where he was napping.
Yeah.
And I think he was like 97, 98 before he finally was like, okay, I'm going to not
down.
doing this. And, but it was, And
Yeah.
at that point, you just learn what you can from them, and listen to their stories and let them know.
Yeah.
Yep.
I hope he was doing it by choice and not by necessity, but
Yeah. Yeah, that's
That's
the thing too. My husband is actually going to be retiring, even though he's 5 years younger than I am. He's been at his job long enough. He can actually retire in January, and I'm pretty sure that's what he's going to do. And so I've been kind of listening and talking with him, and it's like, what are you going to do?
right.
55,
Yeah.
56.
How much
What?
golf can you play?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I'm not even thinking about that for me
Well,
right
no, I don't look at it as retiring. I look at it as working by choice, right? Doing the things you want to
Right.
do as opposed to doing the things you have to do because you got bills to pay and you got kids and, I don't know, whatever's going on in your life or your business is totally dependent on you. And you stop working, it's going to shut down. So,
Yeah.
got to kind of think about that sooner than later.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So, Mitch, thank you so much for spending the time with us today and going over everything. And we are also going to share in the show notes the link to your podcast, your LinkedIn, so people can connect with you. And if you have a website that you want to share, we can put that in there as well. And hopefully everybody will reach out to you, and maybe you'll find some new accidental entrepreneurs to
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
always
as
welcome
well.
good stories, people of, struggles and triumph and whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, thank you again. And to everybody who is listening in, we hope that you are here for our next episode next week.